What happens when a legendary icon decides she's had enough of Hollywood's fake smiles and corporate puppeteering? You won't believe what unfolds when Cher steps onto Jimmy Kimmel's stage and absolutely destroys everything he stands for in the most explosive television moment of the year. Last night's show turned into a battlefield that left audiences stunned, advertisers scrambling, and one host's career hanging by a thread. Before we get into this incredible story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below, because you're not going to believe what unfolds. The tension was palpable from the moment Cher walked onto that El Capitan theater stage. Something was different about the music legend's usual confident stride. Her jaw was set, her eyes focused with laser-like intensity, and there was an unmistakable fire burning behind her signature sunglasses that she refused to remove even under the studio's blazing lights. Jimmy Kimmel, completely oblivious to the storm brewing just feet away from him, flashed his trademark smirk and launched into his opening pleasantries with the kind of manufactured enthusiasm that has made him millions while grinding down countless guests over the years. "Ladies and gentlemen, the incomparable Cher," he announced, gesturing dramatically as the audience erupted in applause. But Cher wasn't having it. Not tonight. As she settled into the guest chair, her body language screamed defiance. Arms crossed, posture rigid, she stared directly at Kimmel with an intensity that would have made lesser men crumble. The studio audience, still riding high on their scripted excitement, had no idea they were about to witness television history in the making. "So, Cher," Kimmel began, consulting his index cards with that insufferable smugness that has become his calling card. "You've been in this business for over 5 decades. What keeps you motivated to keep performing?" The question hung in the air like a loaded weapon. Cher's response came slow and measured, each word carefully chosen and delivered with surgical precision. "You know what, Jimmy? I've been doing this long enough to recognize bullshit when I see it, and I'm looking at a whole lot of bullshit right now." The studio fell silent. Even the cameras seemed to pause, unsure whether to keep rolling or cut to commercial. Kimmel's practiced smile faltered for just a moment before snapping back into place like a broken rubber band, trying to maintain its shape. "I'm sorry, what?" he laughed nervously, glancing toward his production team off stage. "I think maybe we got off on the wrong foot here." "No, Jimmy, we got off exactly where we needed to." Cher leaned forward in her chair, removing those sunglasses to reveal eyes that burned with decades of accumulated frustration. "I came here tonight because I have something to say, and for once in your miserable excuse for a career, you're going to sit there and listen." The audience shifted uncomfortably in their seats. This wasn't the scripted banter they'd paid to see. This was raw, unfiltered confrontation between two titans of the entertainment industry, and one of them was about to get absolutely demolished. Kimmel tried to regain control, his voice taking on that patronizing tone he reserves for guests who dare to step outside his carefully constructed narrative. "Look, Cher, I understand you might be having a difficult evening, but this is a family show and—" "Family show?" Cher's laugh was sharp enough to cut glass. "Is that what you call this corporate propaganda machine? This sanitized, focus-grouped piece of shit where you parade celebrities around like trained seals while you rake in millions from pharmaceutical companies and weapons manufacturers?" The color drained from Kimmel's face. Behind the cameras, producers were frantically gesturing, unsure whether to cut the feed or let this train wreck continue. The audience sat in stunned silence, witnessing something they'd never seen before. Someone calling out the system right to its face. "I think maybe we should take a commercial break," Kimmel suggested weakly, his usual confidence evaporating like morning mist. "Oh no, we're not taking any goddamn commercial breaks," Cher shot back, her voice rising with each word. "You wanted me on this show. You got me. Now you're going to hear what I really think about you and this whole sick industry you represent." Kimmel's mask was slipping fast. The genial host persona he'd cultivated for decades was cracking under pressure, revealing something uglier underneath. "Cher, I need you to calm down. This isn't appropriate behavior for—" "Appropriate?" Cher stood up from her chair, towering over the suddenly diminished host. "You want to talk about appropriate? Let's talk about what's appropriate, Jimmy. Let's talk about how you've spent years kissing ass to politicians and corporations while real people suffer. Let's talk about how you've turned this platform into nothing more than a mouthpiece for whatever narrative pays the most." The studio was electric with tension. Camera operators didn't know where to point their equipment. The live audience sat frozen, afraid to move, afraid to breathe, afraid to miss a single second of this unprecedented meltdown. But this was just the beginning. The real fireworks were about to start, and Jimmy Kimmel was about to discover that some guests refused to play by the rules of his rigged game. Kimmel's desperation was becoming more obvious by the second. Sweat beaded on his forehead under the studio lights as he realized this situation was spiraling completely out of his control. He tried to lean into his usual sarcastic defense mechanism, the same tired routine that had protected him from accountability for years. "Okay, Cher, I think you've made your point," he said, forcing a laugh that sounded more like a dying animal than genuine humor. "But maybe we should focus on your new music instead of, conspiracy theories." The word conspiracy hit Cher like a slap across the face. Her eyes blazed with fury as she took a step closer to his desk, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper that somehow carried more power than if she'd been screaming. "Conspiracy theories? You pathetic little man. You think calling me crazy is going to shut me up? I never called you crazy, I just—" "Shut the fuck up, Jimmy." The profanity cut through the studio like a knife through silk. "You've been sitting behind that desk for years, pretending to be some kind of voice of the people, while you're nothing but a corporate shill in an expensive suit. You think I don't know about the phone calls? You think I don't know about the meetings where they decide which stories get buried and which celebrities get torn apart?" Kimmel's face went from pale to red in seconds. The accusation had struck a nerve, and now his own mask was starting to slip. "You don't know what the hell you're talking about," he snapped, abandoning any pretense of professionalism. "This is my show, and I won't sit here and let some washed-up has been? Cher's laugh was pure venom. "Has been? I've been selling out stadiums since before you were jerking off to your own reflection, you narcissistic piece of shit. And I'll still be here long after your pathetic excuse for a career crashes and burns." The audience gasped audibly. Several people in the front row looked like they were about to faint. Behind the cameras, producers were having heated, whispered conversations about whether to cut the feed, but the ratings were probably going through the roof. This was the kind of television gold that networks dream about. Kimmel stood up from behind his desk, his carefully crafted public persona completely shattered. "Get her out of here," he barked at his security team. "Get this crazy bitch off my stage right now." That was the moment everything exploded. "Crazy bitch?" Cher's voice rose to a roar that filled every corner of the studio. "You just called me a crazy bitch on live television? You absolute fucking coward. This is exactly why your show is getting canceled, Jimmy. This is exactly why nobody with half a brain can stand you anymore." The mention of cancellation hit Kimmel like a physical blow. His show had indeed been struggling with ratings, and rumors had been circulating for weeks about possible network changes. But hearing it thrown in his face on live television, in front of his own audience, was devastating. "My show isn't getting canceled," he protested weakly, but his voice lacked conviction. "Oh, it's not?" Cher pulled out her phone, waving it in the air like a weapon. "Because I've got text messages from 3 different network executives who say otherwise. Want me to read them out loud? Want me to tell your audience exactly what they think of their precious late-night host?" Security guards were finally moving toward the stage, but they seemed hesitant to actually touch the legendary performer. Cher noticed their approach and turned on them with the same intensity she'd been directing at Kimmel. "Don't you fucking dare put your hands on me," she warned. "I'm not done with this spineless coward yet." Kimmel was now standing behind his desk like it was a shield, his usual smugness replaced with genuine panic. "Cher, please, just calm down. We can work this out." "Work this out?" she spat. "You just called me a crazy bitch on national television, and now you want to work it out? You know what we can work out, Jimmy? You can work out your resignation letter. You can work out an apology to every guest you've ever humiliated. You can work out how you're going to explain to your kids why their daddy is a professional asshole." The studio was in complete chaos now. Audience members were standing, some trying to get better views, others heading for the exits. Camera operators were getting conflicting signals from the control room. The whole carefully orchestrated machine of late-night television was falling apart in real time. But Cher wasn't finished. Not even close. As she prepared to deliver her final devastating blow, the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees, and everyone present knew they were about to witness something that would be talked about for decades. Cher walked around the desk slowly, deliberately, like a predator circling wounded prey. Kimmel backed away, his bravado completely evaporated, replaced by the desperate look of a man who knew his career was about to be ended by one of the most powerful women in entertainment history. "You want to know something, Jimmy?" Her voice was eerily calm now, which somehow made it infinitely more terrifying than when she was screaming. "I've been in this business for 57 years. I've seen presidents rise and fall. I've watched empires crumble, and I've outlasted every single piece of shit whoever thought they could intimidate me. And you're nothing. You're a footnote in the history of people I've destroyed." The silence in the studio was deafening. Even the cameramen had stopped moving, mesmerized by the raw power emanating from this legendary performer as she systematically dismantled everything Kimmel thought he was. "I came here tonight with one purpose," she continued, her eyes never leaving his face. "To tell the world exactly what kind of person you really are. Not the fake laughing host, not the political commentator, not the caring family man you pretend to be on social media. The real Jimmy Kimmel, the one who makes deals in back rooms, the one who sells out his friends for ratings, the one who's been complicit in covering up some of the most disgusting behavior in this industry." Kimmel's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. "Cher, you can't just accuse me of. I can accuse you of whatever the fuck I want because I have proof." She pulled her phone out again, this time scrolling through what appeared to be a series of photographs and documents. "You see this? These are emails, Jimmy. Emails between you and network executives discussing which sexual assault allegations get covered up and which ones get weaponized for ratings. You want me to start reading names?" The blood drained from Kimmel's face so quickly he looked like he might collapse. Several audience members gasped audibly as they realized they weren't just watching a celebrity meltdown. They were witnessing the exposure of something much darker and more systematic. "You're bluffing," he whispered, but his voice cracked with uncertainty. "Am I?" Cher's smile was sharp enough to cut diamond. "Sarah Mitchell. Remember that name, Jimmy? Young actress, came forward about a certain A-list director last year. You had her booked for this show, and then mysteriously her appearance got cancelled. Want to guess why?" Kimmel was shaking now. Actual, visible tremors running through his body as Cher systematically dismantled not just his career, but his entire carefully constructed public image. "Because that A-list director happens to be a golf buddy of yours, doesn't he? And because shutting down Sarah's story was worth more to the network than one appearance by a nobody actress. So, you made the call, didn't you, Jimmy? You personally made sure her voice got silenced." "That's not. I never," Kimmel stammered, but the words died in his throat. The guilt was written across his face in letters 10 feet tall. "Oh, but you did," Cher pressed on relentlessly. "And that's just one example. I've got 12 more just like it right here on my phone. 12 women who tried to tell their stories. And 12 times you helped make sure they disappeared." The studio was in complete chaos now. Audience members were filming with their phones, security guards were arguing with producers about what to do, and somewhere in the control room, executives were probably having full-scale panic attacks about the legal implications of what was being broadcast live to millions of viewers. But Cher wasn't done with her demolition job. "You know what the most pathetic part is, Jimmy? You actually convinced yourself you were doing the right thing. You told yourself you were protecting the industry, protecting careers, protecting some greater good. But really, you were just protecting your own cowardly ass and your paycheck." She leaned in close enough that he could see every line of fury etched into her face. "Well, guess what, you spineless piece of shit? Your protection just ran out. The network executives I talked to this morning, they don't want to protect you anymore. The advertisers who've been pulling out of your show for months, they're done with you. And the women whose voices you helped silence, they're ready to tell their stories whether you like it or not." Kimmel tried one last desperate play, appealing to the audience with the kind of manipulative sincerity he'd perfected over decades of fake apologies and damage control. "Look, I think there's been a misunderstanding here. Cher is obviously going through something difficult, and don't you fucking dare try to gaslight me in front of these people." Cher's voice exploded through the studio with such force that several people in the front row actually flinched. Don't you dare try to make this about my mental health when we both know this is about your criminal behavior. That was it. That was the moment Jimmy Kimmel's career officially ended. The desperation in his eyes turned to something uglier. Pure rage at being exposed, at losing control, at having his carefully maintained facade ripped away by someone he couldn't intimidate or silence. "Get the fuck off my stage, you crazy old bitch!" he screamed, his voice cracking with hysteria. "Security! Get her out of here right now!" Cher threw back her head and laughed, a sound of pure triumph and vindication that echoed through the studio like a victory song. "There he is! There's the real Jimmy Kimmel! Look at him, everyone! Look at your beloved late-night host when he doesn't get his way." Security guards finally moved in, but Cher was already walking toward the exit on her own term. She turned back one final time to deliver her parting shot, and when she spoke, her voice carried the weight of decades of experience, wisdom, and unshakable strength. "This show is over, Jimmy. Not just tonight's show. Your whole pathetic charade is finished. The network made their decision this morning. You've got 2 weeks left before they announce your replacement. I just wanted to make sure everyone knew exactly why." With that, she strode off the stage with her head held high, leaving behind a shattered host, a traumatized audience, and one of the most explosive moments in television history. The cameras kept rolling as Kimmel stood frozen behind his desk, his career in ruins, his reputation destroyed, and his future uncertain. The last image broadcast to millions of viewers was of Jimmy Kimmel collapsing into his chair, a broken man who had finally met someone he couldn't manipulate, couldn't silence, and couldn't defeat. Cher had kept her promise. She had exposed the truth, and in doing so, she had reminded everyone why legends become legends and why cowards eventually fall.